Okay, we are live, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so yesterday we were multiplying polynomials. Today we're going to talk about factoring them. Now, before we get into this real deep, I just want to make sure everybody understands. This first page that's on the front, both front and back, are just for your benefit. I'm not going to go over them. They're for you to look at when you're not in this classroom with me, okay? We're going to work on this page right here. That's what we're going to work on, all right? But I went ahead and made this for you so that you had it and you could look back at it if you need to, okay? Now, let's talk about what the word factor means. So what does factor mean? When we say factor, what are we talking about? Anybody know? Yes, exactly. So if I give you the number 24 and I say, yo, what's the factors of 24? So 6 and 4 is a set of factors for 24. Is that the only option though? 8 and 3, 12 and 2, 24 and 1. So each one of these is a set of factors for 24. All that means is two things that multiply to get that thing. That's what factors are. Two things that multiply to get that thing, right? Well, when we're looking at polynomials, like we look at this first one we've got here, and I ask you to factor it, the very first thing you should do is look at it and say, okay, is there a greatest common factor? That means, is there something that goes into all the terms that I can take out of all the terms? Okay? So the first thing that we'll do is we'll look at the numbers. And I like to set it up like this. So I'm going to put a little line under it because all you do when you're dividing is when you factor, is you divide the one thing by the other thing to see what the simplified version is. So we'll look at the numbers. Is there something that could go into 12 and 3 evenly? Could we divide both 12 and 3 by the same thing? What? 3. So we're going to divide by 3 and we're going to divide by 3. And then over here for our factored form, we're going to write a 3 because it's going to be on the outside of our parentheses. Then we look at our variables. Look at our a's first. So we have a squared in this one and we have a in that one. You can only take out the biggest thing that's in all of them. So even though this has a squared, we can't take a squared out of this one over here because it didn't have a squared. But what can we take out of this one over here? A. So a and a is going to be part of our factored number. Okay? And then look at our b's. So we have a b squared in this one, but we just have a b over here. So we can factor b out. So over here we can factor b out. So we're going to put a b right there. Everybody with me so far? Okay, and then we're going to put parentheses. Over here, now we're going to do our dividing. So we've got 12 divided by 3 is 4. When you have a squared divided by a, this a right here cancels out one of those a's right there, and you're left with just an a. It's a to the first power, but we don't have to put the 1. It's an understood 1 if it's there. This b will cancel out one of those b's. And so it's b to the first power, but we can just put b. Okay? And then, what is this? It's going to be -1 because we have something divided by itself. What's 3 divided by 3? 1. What's a divided by a? What's b divided by b? So it's 1 times 1 times 1, which is just 1. When you have something divided by itself, it's just 1. This is our answer. This is our factored form, right? That's what it's going to look like. We are going to skip the next 3. We'll come back to them. We're just going to skip them for right now. I don't like their order, so I'm going to do my own order. All right, so let's look at this one right here. This This one, x squared minus 9x plus 20. Now, this x squared minus 9x plus 20 does not have a greatest common factor. There's not something we can take out of all three of those terms. They don't have anything in common. So for this one, we're going to do what some teachers call reverse FOIL method. Have you ever heard reverse FOIL method? Have you ever heard of the FOIL method?
Yes.
Okay, so last year, those that were in my class last year, we did talk, I mentioned it, but I don't teach it like that because not all first, outer, inner, last, right? So, y'all remember yesterday when we had like 2x plus 3 times x minus 4 like this? And we multiplied this 2x times this x. And this 2x times this negative 4. And this 3 times this x and this 3 times this negative 4. Well, some teachers will teach us where this, when you multiply 2 times x, that's called first. And that's 2x squared comes from the first thing. And then 2x times negative 4, which is negative 8x, that's your outer because you're multiplying your outside here times your outside there. Okay? And then your 3 times your x, that's your inner because you're multiplying these two that are on the inside. And then 3 times negative 4, negative 12, that's your last because you're multiplying the last term here times the last term there. So first, outer, inner, last, it's called FOIL. That's what it's called. Okay? So sometimes you will hear teachers refer to what we're about to do as reverse FOIL. Now, all we're doing is factoring. FOIL is not a method. FOIL is just an acronym for remembering what order to multiply them in. But as long as you know how to do distributive property, it's not necessary because you know you're just multiplying everything times everything, right? It's not some sort of magical different process. It's the exact same process, just a different name for it. So whenever we look at this x squared minus 9x plus 20, when we look at this, I'm going to write it on this paper, right? And we're trying to break this down into factors. We're looking for what two binomials could we multiply to get that guy? Like what could we multiply here so that it turns into that? Now, remember this first term right here, this first term comes from multiplying this first term times this first term. So you have to say to yourself, all right, what are things I could multiply to get x squared? And there's only one option. Well, there's two options. You could do x squared times 1 or x times x. It's always going to be the x times x, y'all. Always. Okay? So that goes there. And then we jump to the end and we say, oh, hey, look, I know that when I multiply this last term and this last term, I get 20. So I've got to think of all the possibilities that I could multiply that might give me 20. So what are things that multiply to give me 20? 4 and 5. What else? 2 and 10. What else? 20 and 1. So these are my options, right? And we don't just randomly pick it. We have to pick numbers that, okay, when we put them here, and then we multiply this, and we multiply this, and we add those two things together, we get this number from the middle, because this is your outer plus your inner, right? So it is going to be 4 and 5. Now let's talk about how we know that so quickly. So we know that we're going to be combining these two things, right? So if we look at these numbers of factors, there's no way you can combine 20 and 1 and get 9. Not going to happen. There's no way you can combine 2 and 10 and get 9. Not going to happen. But we could combine 4 and 5 and get 9, right? So we're going to be using 4 and 5. Now let's talk about our signs. When we multiply 4 and 5, we get a positive number. What kind of numbers can you multiply to get a positive? 2 negatives or 2 positives. That means 4 and 5 could both be negative, or 4 and 5 could both be positive. Right? When we look at negative 9x, that means when we multiply 5 times x and we get 5x here, and we multiply 4 times x and we get 4x there, and then we add them together, we get negative 9x. Right? So what do the 4 and the 5 have to be so that you get a negative 9? They both have to be a negative. And there's our factored version. You remember it now? We did it last year. We did it a lot, actually. I wanted y'all to be good at it. Y'all remember it? You may not have. Different teachers stress different things, right? And so this is one of those things that you get down to the end of the year and you may not have got it covered yet in some classrooms. It just happens. Last year, I was determined that my kids were going to do a bunch of it.
Well, I think before that, I wasn't
Yep. That happened to my Algebra 1 kiddos too. Yep. Okay, that year, it was horrible. Okay, so that was this one, right? X minus 4, x minus 5. Okay, we're going to skip down to this guy right here. X squared minus 9x plus 18. Okay? So we're going to look for things that we can multiply. Now, I'm starting with y'all with the easy ones, right? Huh? Weirdo. Okay. What are things... Quit hitting the wall. What are things that multiply to get x? X squared. X and x. So we know it's going to be x and x, right? Now let's think of things that multiply to get 18. All the different factors that multiply to get 18. 2 and 9. 6 and 3. 18 and 1. And then we're going to look at which of these factors could combine to get 9. Now, that means combine whether it's adding or subtracting, but combine in some way to get 9, right? So our only options here are 6 and 3, right? There's no way 9 and 2 is going to give you 9. No way 18 and 1 is going to give you 9. So 6 and 3. Okay? Then we're going to look at this. And this sign says that we combine them, we get a negative 9. And this sign says that they have to be the same, right? They're either both positive or they're both negative. Well, if they're the same thing, but we get a negative, what do they have to be? They got to be a negative, right? So that's going to be a negative and a negative. Now, if you wanted to check yourself to see if you were getting this right, you could multiply this out to make sure you got this, right? So if we multiplied this out, what's x times x? Yep. What's x times negative 3? Negative 3x. What's negative 6 times x? What's negative 6 times negative 3? 18. And if you combine negative 3 and negative 6, what do you get? Negative 9x. So did we get the same thing? Yes, so since we got the same thing, we know we factored it accurately. Does that make sense? Okay, so if we look at number, let me see. I wish I had numbered these before I printed 60 copies of it. Let's look at this one. We'll do these two right here. Let's do one of them. Let's do this one right here. I want you all to circle this one.
Which one?
That second one. X squared minus 8x plus 16. Circle that one. Because I'm going to make y'all do that one on your own. Okay? But we're going to do this one together right here. So we're doing that one together. Right? What's going to go here and here? X and X. Right? And then what are factors of 28? 7 and 4. 14 and 2. 28 and 1. So which of those might combine to get us 3? 7 and 4. Now, if they combine to get us 3, that means we're going to have to subtract, right? If you add 7 and 4, you're not getting 3. You're going to have to subtract. And it's a positive 3, which means the 7 is positive and the 4 will be negative. Now, let's see if that jives up here, okay? So if we put a 7 and a 4 in, and we multiply 7 times 4, we get a negative value, negative 28. What does that tell you about the 7 and 4 signs? They got to be different. So one's got to be a positive, one got to be a negative. That works with what we just talked about, how if we have 7 and 4, we have to subtract them. And then you guys have already told me the 7's got to be the positive, the 4 has to be the negative. Because if I do positive 7x, negative 4x, and I add those together, that gives me 3x. Does everybody understand that? Okay. Y'all try that next one. See if y'all can do that one on your own. I'll give you just a minute. You already got it? I mean, like, cool. Are you done? Do you remember this from last year? We did a bunch of it last year. Huh? Did you get it this year? You know, sometimes our brains just have to be a little more developed before an idea or a concept sinks in. I think we teach fractions to kids way too young for them to truly understand them. And just a very small percentage of kids actually understand fractions when they're taught that. And then I think some people, over time, it gradually just clicks for them, and some people just never get it.
I'm one of those people that's never get it.
Yes, that is also accurate. But I think, now, see, my mom teaches 5th and 6th grade math, so and my cousin teaches 4th grade math, and another cousin teaches 3rd grade math. So I have a real good, I see everything. Like, I see everything they're learning, you know, all the way through. And I think that a lot of times fractions are taught as a memorization thing instead of as an understanding thing. Like, you're taught, memorize these rules and apply these rules, and it's not really let's understand what's going on. You know what I mean? Yeah. Which she may be having trouble focusing in class, and so to her they really didn't show because she didn't catch it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I have a brother. I actually have 2 of them, but I have brothers that are twins to each other. Not twins to me, twins to each other. And one of them is dyslexic, and the other one, school was real easy for. And so the one that was dyslexic, he tried real hard when he was young. But as he got older, he got to where he just didn't care anymore. And he told me one time that when you tried your very best and your very best wasn't good enough, you could just quit trying. So have some grace with your sister. She may have just quit trying because she's tried her very best and she's tired of not understanding even when she tries. You know what I'm saying?
She just likes to make other people
Yeah. She could also be evil. So there's that. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. What did y'all get on this one? X minus 4 and x minus 4. Good job. Good job. So there's another way we could write that. Instead of writing it as x minus 4 times x minus 4.
X minus 4 squared.
Right. X minus 4 squared. Okay, let's look at this one right here. The one that says 3x3 plus 9x squared minus 12x. Let's look at that one real quick. Tell me what you notice. So this is one of those instances where we can factor something out of everything. And then after we factor something out of everything, we might be able to factor it again. Okay? But what can we factor out of all of them? 3. Anything else? X. So when we do that, we're going to have 3x on the outside, right? And then this 3 and that 3 cancels. This x cancels one of those x's and leaves us with x squared. 9 divided by 3 gives us 3. This x cancels one of those x's and leaves us with x. Negative 12 divided by 3 is 4. And that x just cancel each other out. So now we've got this. And this is a trinomial, and we might be able to factor that trinomial. So we're going to try it and see. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Some of them can't be factored, some of them can. Are there things that multiply to get 4 that might add up to get 3? 4 and 1. If the signs work out, then that's going to work, right? We've got to make sure the signs will work. So let's work through it. So that 3x on the outside, still on the outside. We don't get rid of it. I am moving it. I am trying. I'm trying very hard here. So I'm trying so hard. All right. So let's see if this works out. It may not work. So we know we're going to have that x and that x, right? And it could be 4 and 1, right? Now, this sign tells me when I multiply 4 and 1, I get a negative. What does that mean about 4 and 1? Well, it means one of them's a positive, one of them's a negative, right? But what does this tell us right here? That plus sign right there. It tells us that the 4 is going to be a positive, the 1's going to be a negative. So see how we did 2 different kinds of factoring on the same problem here? What was that? Oh, thanks, buddy. Okay, does that make sense, everybody? Everybody good? Are we ready to roll on? Okay, look at this one right here at the very top. So this one's going to be a little harder. This one. Now, why is this one going to be a little harder? So, all the ones we've done so far that we factored, this was x and this was x. But this is not going to be just x and x because we got 2. So, what are things that multiply to get 2? 2 and 1. And that's really it, right? It's just 2 and 1. So that's going to give us a 2x and a 1x right there. That's our only options, which that makes things a little easier because that is the only option, right? And then we look at the end and we say, all right, what multiplies to get me 2? It's also going to be 2 and 1, right? So that is our only option as well. Here's where the tricky part comes into this. It's not a thing where you can just stick them wherever you want to willy-nilly. Like, you have to put them in so that when they multiply that outside and that inside and you add those together, you get 3x. So when we multiply this and this, and we multiply this and this, and we add those together, we got to get 3x right there, right? So if we put the 2 here, right, that's going to give us 2x. And if we put this 2, or the 1 here, that's going to give us 2x. Will 2x and 2x combine to get 3? No. If we put the 2 here, then this times this is going to give me 4x. And if I put the 1 there, 1 times x is going to give me 1x. Y'all with me? So can that combine to get 3? Yes. A 4 and a 1 can combine to get 3, right? Now, as a reminder, this sign tells you if your numbers are going to have the same sign or a different sign. That sign tells me they're going to have a different sign. That means one's a positive, one's a negative, right? This sign tells me that when I combine my outer and inner, I get a positive. That means my bigger number, after I multiplied, my bigger number has to be a positive, right? So if I put this as a positive 2, then that's going to give me positive 4x. If I put this as a negative 1, that's going to give me negative 1x. And when you combine negative 1x and positive 4, what do you get? 3x. Did y'all see it? Oh, we still have like nearly 15 minutes. Wow, we're doing great. A negative Ghost Rider.
Next Friday will be.
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Wait, you said that? Yeah, the death
Next Friday, yeah. So Monday is regular school, right? Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we test. Friday we'll do a free day, like a full-on free day. Well, I was planning on watching a movie, but I was thinking we would have 2 days to have a free day, and we don't have 2 days, so
we can also use that next Monday.
we could, but we're not going to.
Oh yeah.
What y'all doing?
We won't be there.
Why?
So we'll probably have to make up a test.
Why will you have to make up a test?
We're going to the correct conference.
They might have y'all make up the test on Friday, but I don't think they will. Normally they do makeups like the next week. They don't do them the same week.
So,
That's normal. Now, who knows what they do this year? Who knows? All right. Hey, y'all try this one. Can y'all do this one that has the 5x squared minus 22x minus 15? Show me what you got.
all right. What they made is 22 and 18.
You haven't looked at it yet? Are you scared?
I made it 20 on my accent.
Did you really? Oh. Are y'all? Yeah. But you got to remember, you haven't taken Algebra 2 yet.
They said that it's mainly geometry.
But it's not. I know people say that crap, but it's not. There are literally 4 trig questions on the whole test. Yeah.
But those 4 can help.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I wouldn't worry about those 4 questions when there's other things that you can, like, brush up on to do better. Yeah, but you don't know them, so you just guess and move on, right? If you don't know it, guess and move on. Don't let it bother you. Okay, so we've got two different, and remember, they don't always work. So it's possible that we may not be able to factor it, but let's figure it out. Okay.
I got the eggs.
I sure did. Thank you. All right, so we need something that multiplies to get 15. I mean 5. And that has to be 5 and 1. Like, that's literally our only options is 5 and 1, right? And then we need things that multiply to get 15. So that could be 15 and 1. That could be 3 and 5, right? You with me? Now, whenever we have this 5 and 1, so I'm going to go ahead and write this out. So we've got 5x and 1x, right? And then we do these two and these two, and we combine them, and we get 22, right? So sometimes we have to do a little trial and error. Now, I will say right now, we know we're not going to put 15 right there. Because what's 15 times 5? Yeah, like huge, right? So we know that's not going to be a 15. And if we put 15 right here in this spot, and that would be 15x, and then we put a 1 over here in this spot, put a 1 over here, that's going to give us 5x. Well, 15x and 5x do not give us 22. So we can just mark out 15 and 1. We know that ain't going to work. But 3 and 5 might work. So we've got to try some different combinations, right? So if we put 3 right here and 5 right there. So we put 3 right here. 3 times 5 is 15. And we put 5 right there. 5, that's going to give me 15 and 5. Is that going to get me 22? But what if I put a 5 right here? So if I put a 5 right here and I put a 3 right there. So that's going to give me 25. That's going to give me 3, right? Now let's talk about my signs. This sign says that my 3 and my 5 have to be different from each other. Because when I multiply them, I get a negative. The only way you get a negative when you multiply is if they're different. This sign tells me when I add, I wind up with a negative. That means my bigger number that I'm adding together has to be the negative value. So that means that 25 has to be the negative value. That means that 5 has to be the negative value. That means that 3 has to be the positive value. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like it's got a tongue sticking out. Yeah. Okay. Let's look at this one right. Hang on, I'm trying to find it again. Let's look at this one. Yeah, the X4. That one, the X4. So on this one, what's the first thing you notice? Yeah, what else? They all got X's. You can factor out some X's, right? So if we factor out, how much can we factor out? So we can factor out x squared out of all of them, right? Now remember, we can't just throw that x squared away. It hangs out on the outside. We're not getting rid of it. It just hangs out there. It's kind of like a dog that you just cannot keep in the house because he destroys everything, but you don't want to get rid of him. You just leave him outside your house, you know? Yeah. He's still there. He's still your pet. You still love him. You just can't let him in the house because he chewed up like 400 pairs of shoes already and 5 charging cables, and one of them was expensive. Yeah. Huh? What? No, my dog don't chew crap up at all. I'm actually describing a friend's dog.
But he did bring something in the house. So
He did bring horse poop in the house, yes.
in his mouth.
In his mouth,
Smart.
yeah.
I would so.
Yesterday,
Yeah.
not yesterday, Sunday he did a new thing. So I was going to give him a bath. I gave my little dog a bath. She's fine. But he figured out what was going on. And so when I got ready to give him a bath, he did not want to take a bath. So he just laid down on his back and wouldn't move. And he weighs 25 pounds. So he's kind of hard to like lift and maneuver. So he just lays on his back and just lays there. And I'm like, Cosmo, come on. Let's go take a bath. And then he starts peeing. While he's laying on his back in my living room floor. And I'm like, no, Cosmo, no. He stopped, but still. He was just scared. Huh? Uh-huh. His name is Cosmo. His name is Cosmo Harry. Because after he got named Cosmo, I realized he had the lightning bolt on his head, sort of. And so I said I should name him Harry. So his name is Cosmo Harry. Huh? Like Harry Potter? Okay, so what do we get here? We get x squared minus 11x plus 24, right? And then you're going to see, hey, can I factor the second part of this? So if I can factor the second part, I'm going to. So I know it would have to be x and x, right? And then what are things that multiplied it to get 24 that might add to get 11 or subtract to get 11? 8 and 3. What are my signs going to be? They're both going to be negative because this tells me they're the same and that tells me they're negative. Right? Everybody good so far? Okay, let's look at, what time is it, y'all? 31? Okay, let's look at this one. I'm trying to decide how I want to do this. What? I guess. I think we're going to stop. We will pick this up tomorrow. Don't lose your packet, okay? I don't want to start that next one because it's a little complicated.
Oh, Lord.